When somebody asks me to name a revenge story here and there where a leading lady basically goes after a man who has wronged her on so many accounts, what's the first story that comes to mind? For me, it's Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 by Quentin Tarantino. So when I think of the story here and there of the bride who basically was trying to get away from her master assassin boyfriend Bill, and trying to actually start a new life someplace else, and then he finds her out and then basically tries to kill her with his group of fellow assassins, yeah, things go horribly wrong for her. But she doesn't actually get killed, but rather rises from like a coma here and there, if you will, and vows her revenge. Some of those revenge stories can turn out to be some of the most brutal stuff ever, but nobody ever told me that there was another story out there that can make it almost like a romantic comedy. Enter into the world Skip Beat, which is this amazing anime which is based off the manga by Yoshiki Nakamura, who turned out one of the coolest stories in the entire world, and not only that, the story even continues to this day. So the story's been running out for the past couple of decades, really, and finally, HAL Studios decides to pick it up and turn it into a 25-episode anime, which was so freaking exciting. A lot of people who are fans of the manga are like, holy crap, we're finally getting an anime of this? Dude, this is amazing. However, there are a couple of issues that I do have with this anime here and there too, and I will cover those towards the end of the video, but make no mistake, this anime is probably one of the funniest ones that I've seen in a while, and not only that, but it's an incredibly good story. So for all of you guys, let's just dive into this one. Skip Beat is a 25-episode romantic comedy anime which is centered around a young girl by the name of Kyoko Mogami as she enters into the world of show business in order to exact her revenge against the man who had wronged her, Fuwa Shotaru. The show aired between October 2008 and March 2009, and even though it wasn't renewed for a second season, what we did get was an absolute treasure, and again, as I mentioned beforehand, the manga still even continues to this day into 2020. But despite the fact that the show had such a brief run and only one season, it's still beloved by many fans worldwide, and the fact that the manga even continues to this day just goes to show exactly how important it is to the entire community. This anime reminds me of many of the shows that I grew up with, and in particular Super Gals, in which the main character's expressions of emotion here and there that were going on inside her head were very over the top and exaggerated, and you make no mistake, you knew exactly what she was feeling at every single moment. But even though these exaggerations are like very over the top here and there too, they add a huge element of comedy to it, which I definitely also think is a big nod to the manga written by Yoshiki Nakamura. Now, is it a story of revenge? It absolutely is, but does it turn into something more? Of course it does. Now before we get started with the main characters, I want to give a special shout out to Baker Girl Steph, who had recommended this anime for us as part of our spring watch season. So Steph, this one's for you, and even though this anime came out in 2008-2009, guys, it is very much worth watching. Trust me on this one. So now, let's dive into our main characters. First up, we have Kyoko Mogami, and she is our leading lady, and holy crap, her story is actually really crazy. She's cute, she's fun to be around, she does all the chores at home, is very good-natured, and has a boyfriend who treats her like a doormat. When the show starts out, she's basically a homebody who's living at her apartment with her boyfriend Sho, who essentially just is trying to pursue his career as a star musician. And she takes care of everything at home, including cooking, cleaning, keeping the place in order, cheerful, happy, the whole bit. She lives a fairly peaceful life with Sho. I mean, they kind of just, you know, are doing their own thing at home for the most part. He comes home late at night just because he's running like TV programs where he basically goes out and promotes his music on television. And she gets to hear about a lot of his complaints here and there about Ren Saruga, who is basically his rival male idol, if you will. However, Kyoko's world does come crashing down here and there too, when she kind of eavesdrops Sho talking with his manager here and there about his living conditions and about the person that he's living with. Sho then goes on to describe her as somebody who basically is his maid, who cleans up after him and looks after the house while he's gone, and he doesn't really care for her all that much, really. When she hears this, she raises her voice, throws a fit, and storms right out, and then vows to basically exact her revenge on him by becoming a star herself. So then she changes her appearance, dyes her hair, gets whole new clothes and wardrobe, and then goes after a couple of different bits and auditions for acting. The rest of the show shows her incredible journey of developing her talents as an actress, but also a lot of the different opportunities that she has to exact her revenge in some of the most odd ways, actually. But despite starting out with this whole revenge story, her character develops into somebody who actually really goes after, like, being an actual actress and starting to develop a love for the craft. And then our next main character is Fuwa Shotaro, or Sho for short. And yeah, he's Kyoko's ex-boyfriend who she's trying to get revenge against. Sho's kind of an arrogant personality, very narcissistic, and somebody whose soul is consumed with trying to achieve stardom and trying to let the world know of his brilliance. And despite being a prick to everybody, pretty much, he actually unfortunately does possess some talent as far as musical ability is concerned. He's slowly making his way up in the charts and trying to become the #1 male idol, if you will, in all of Japan. Many of the women who he meets, at least at first, are initially charmed by his wit, his good looks, and his talent for music. However, as time does go by here and there too, a lot of them find out exactly who he is. Really. As a young man, he decided he did not want to take over his parents' business in managing their hotel for the most part, and essentially he moves away to Tokyo to pursue a career in stardom. And who does he bring along with him but Kyoko Mogami, our leading lady, and oh my god, she is love-struck by this guy, at least at first. Up until the beginning of this anime, he's been able to kind of fool her into taking care of things at home, but then when he reveals his true colors, she decides to go get her revenge. And then another one of our main characters is the guy who's standing in Sho's way as far as becoming the #1 male idol in all of Japan, and that is Ren Saruga. Ren is an actor who is essentially pretty much, the #1 male idol in all of Japan, but he's basically a TV star for the most part. This is a guy who's already established himself as a primetime actor who is like basically taking up all the leading spots, has made a name for himself as being such a great actor, and yes, you guessed it, all the women fawn over him too. But Ren is hiding a little bit of a secret. He's not exactly somebody who has quite figured out how to love people yet. Even though he's a really good actor, Ren, essentially when he's faced with the role of trying to act out his love here and there for like a leading female here and there in one of his TV shows, he finds himself a little bit handicapped in ways that he can actually pull that off. And again, his agency understands this and knows this about him, so they also have to work on him a little bit as well. But despite this, Ren is actually really good at heart, and for a lot of intents and purposes, even though he may tease a lot of the women in his life here and there too, he does really care for a whole lot of them, and he does really mean well. It's just kind of hard for him to show it. It's just really hard for him to show it, as he hasn't really figured it out here and there too, because he's made acting pretty much his entire life. And then we have our last main character that I want to touch upon, that is Kotonami Kanae, and holy crap, she really takes acting to a whole nother level. At first she shows off her talents when Kyoko and her are basically a part of the same auditioning class, and she pretty much nails it and knocks it right out of the park. And even though Kotonami nails that first audition for the most part, it comes to a head in one of the second auditions where it highlights a lot of her weaknesses as an actress. Even though Kotonami has a couple of weaknesses that get highlighted here and there in some of the auditions here and there too, she is very dedicated to acting and wants to establish herself as a leading actress. So she finds Kyoko on her journey here and there too, and they essentially become best friends along this journey. And they get into an organization here and there too that gets kind of created as an offshoot to their company, the acting company that they're with, and their friendship that blossoms from this is absolutely amazing to watch. So now, let's talk about the plot of Skip Beat. So again, the show does start out with Kyoko being wronged by Sho in such a freaking terrible way, and yeah, she does vow to get her revenge. So she changes her appearance and essentially just kind of vows to get her revenge by entering the show business. Well, she starts the auditioning process and finds out that a lot of her hatred and animosity towards Sho definitely comes through with her acting. Well, it was 3 times definitely, but huge revenge story for sure. So she attends this one audition with LME, which is essentially the acting company that has also hired Ren Saruga, Sho's main rival, and she meets Kotonami Kanae. Initially, those two ladies are big rivals because Kotonami is like, wait a minute, you're just doing this for revenge? That's not anything to do with acting. I mean, you're not doing this for the right reasons. And even though Kotonami knocks it out of the park, Kyoko finds herself devastated by the fact that when she does turn in her first audition, that even though she's supposed to act out what she hears on basically this mobile call that comes up, in something that's supposed to be an expression of love, she turns into a "how dare you slight me, you son of a bitch" type of thing, which is actually still fun to watch, even for the company's director. And the show's director loves this performance so much, even though it was thoroughly incorrect here and there too. He does believe that she has potential as an actress. So the show's director gets this one crazy idea in his head about a new offshoot for the company, and it's called the Love Me section. The Love Me section is essentially for this group of people who have acting potential, but they lack a little bit of an important ingredient, and that is love. So this section is essentially kind of this group here and there too, where they're trying to get people to love them, get people to be inspired by them, get people to kind of listen to them here and there too, and have that come through in their acting. And even with this Love Me section here and there too, it's kind of weird in the sense that they have a lot of the actors and actresses who work for the company employ a lot of the people from the Love Me section, specifically Kyoko, to do little chores around them, like clean chewing gum off of floors and stuff, and trying to make sure that everybody is well sheltered or well provided for when they're doing their thing in acting. So are they basically chore people? Yeah, kinda. And they also get these really crazy pink jumpsuit uniforms, which make them stand out among everybody else, which they make Kyoko wear on a regular basis. But okay, so Kyoko starts out in the Love Me section, and she essentially just starts to say, okay, if this is what I have to do in order to become a leading actress, I'm gonna go do it. So as the show progresses, she does meet a whole lot of actors and actresses along the way here and there, as she does chores for them. But then she finds out that another member has been added to the Love Me section, and it is Kotonami Kanae. What? So even as they start out like rivals here and there, Kyoko sees her and then basically says, hey, you know what, why don't we just be friends and stuff? Initially, Kotonami, whom Kyoko has nicknamed Moko at this point, is a little bit hesitant to the idea, but as they start to get a couple of projects together, they see that they are able to work together effectively. As the show progresses with their friendship, they kind of challenge each other to be better as actresses. Which, as Kyoko goes forward here and there too, she does find that she has that big challenge of overcoming a lot of the mindset of her revenge against Sho. This mindset is also very much exacerbated by Ren Saruga, who tells her, yeah, you're just doing this for revenge, and yeah, I look down upon you for this. But even so, here and there too, she does carry a little stone with her that was given to her by a boy named Korn. It's probably not his name, but that was probably the nickname for him at the time. And she invokes it whenever she needs the courage here and there to see something through. It's also heavily hinted throughout the show that Ren Saruga, in his past life, possibly, was Korn. So at least in the first season here and there too, we start to see some of their memories come back. And throughout the show, it's one of those crazy things where whenever Kyoko has an opportunity to get her revenge against Sho, she does wholeheartedly, including one TV spot that he was on, where she dresses up as the chicken mascots and kind of messes with him that way. And does this make for hilarious entertainment? Absolutely it does, only because her demons come out and essentially she does whatever she can in order to get her revenge. But at the same time, is it all about revenge? Does it stay all about revenge? No, it actually develops into something a little bit more so. And as Kyoko is pursuing her career as an actress, it's one of those things too where essentially she starts to make it more about becoming good as an actress here and there and developing her skill set, which she actually does throughout the show, and less so about her revenge against Sho. And then the other side of the equation, we have Ren Saruga, who's essentially the #1 actor in Japan, but he does lack that one ingredient, which is being able to express love in his performances. So we not only see Kyoko struggling to become a good actress over here in Japan, but at the same time we see Ren Saruga's struggles as well, and the clash between the two of them here and there as they try to up their game in their performances. But then again, as the two of them start to work together here and there in a couple of different projects here and there, we start to see some feelings start to form between the two of them. And now let's talk about the production quality and soundtrack to this anime. So as far as production quality, HAL Studios, when they did pick up this anime for the most part, it was pretty good for the most part in the 2008-2009 era of anime. But I will say that it's not like the most crazy budget production that you have ever seen in your entire life, but for what it is, it does its job very well. Where it does particularly shine though is whenever Kyoko is expressing herself emotionally here in it too, where her demons come out and they just basically are like, oh my god, I hate this guy or something. It's so fun to watch, but at the same time, huge nod to the manga, I'm sure, and oh my god, such a fun one to watch. And as far as the soundtrack is concerned, one of the standout tracks, at least to me, was the first opening sequence, which was Dreamstar performed by The Generous. And it's actually a really good opening for the most part and kind of gets you in the mood here and there to see the anime. The rest of the tracks for the most part are fairly typical of a romantic comedy anime. I mean, they essentially are there to fill space and essentially just kind of carry the mood for whatever's going on in the story. One of the other tracks that I did like here and there is this kind of bass group that usually plays whenever she's trying to plot her revenge or just kind of get something important in her life going. And it usually comes into play here in the two where she gets like a bright idea or like she's trying to exact her revenge in such a way. Is this the best production quality and soundtrack that I've ever heard from an anime or seen in an anime? No, it's not, but at the same time, I'm not saying that it's bad, I'm just saying it's kind of in middle of the road kind of territory. And now, let's talk about my conclusion. So after much deliberation and plotting my revenge against the creators of the show, who did not renew it for a second season, I award Skip Beat with a score of 3.4 out of 5, recommending that you guys at least watch this anime. The story is great. It's one of those revenge stories that I actually really liked, and it's one of those ones that turned from a revenge story into pretty much a romantic comedy, but I did have several problems with it. One of my biggest problems was the pacing of it, and it's one of those things too where I think a second season really could have done some good with this anime. But it's one of those ones where I found myself, kind of watching it and I'm like, when is it gonna get going here and there too? We might be taking a little bit long with it. But that was probably them attributing it to following the manga almost to a T for the most part. And it left itself off at one of my biggest cliffhangers in anime, which is my biggest problem with it. The show essentially ends without a resolution between Kyoko and Ren, and it's one of those stories that's set up to the point where you think that they're gonna get together, but then they kinda do, but then they really don't, and I'm like, I need more, damn it! Why would you end the story right there? So even with all the issues with pacing here and there too, it's one of those stories where I'm just like, I really wanted to enjoy it. But I did take off some marks here and there too because I'm like, it really didn't end kind of in a satisfying way, which I'm kind of like, huh, right. But is it worth a watch? It absolutely is worth a watch, and if anything, if it gets you inspired to read the manga, you should definitely check this one out. Now, if you've seen the show, great, let us know about it in the comments section, or if you've read the manga, even better, fill us in the story here and there too in the comments section down below. And for all of you guys out there, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also check out some of our other anime reviews here and there too. And I will see you guys soon in the next video. Bye bye!